Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Arragas City of Dreams. I am Sean Dixon, the Bearded Foe, aka the Bearded Foe. And it is my job to present to you, the viewers, and to our esteemed heroes, the world and dangers of Arragas City of Dreams. So tonight, what I'm going to do is a Season 1, Episode 8 recap. For those of you that watched Season 1, Episode 8, you know that we had technical difficulties during the filming of the episode, which resulted in the majority of the episode being unwatchable. So tonight I'm going to do a Season 1, Episode 8 recap. And that way, if you're watching this on one of the other media devices and you're binge watching us, then it doesn't just hiccup from Episode 7 to Episode 9, and you know what went on. So, what you probably already know if you watched the small chunk that did make it to YouTube is that during the beginning of Episode 8 started on the evening of the 5th Sol Day of the Butter Moon. And that's important because several important things were coming up during that week. Most notably, Arister's vow ceremony to become a paladin. So the episode opened up with Kethra and Liliana having bridged the gap and apologized to each other regarding the attack on Macaria in the previous episode. Some people read a book. Some heroes chose to read a book, and Kethra's religious bent did not allow her to read from the book, and furthermore, she saw it as a real danger. And in her attempts to wrest the control of the book away from the rest of the party, she attacked Macaria, and Liliana had to step in and keep Kethra and Macaria from seriously injuring each other. So they have apologized to each other, and they've smoothed that over. So now Macaria and Kethra are cool, Liliana and Kethra are cool, and everything's fine. They went back to Sable Guard to turn in Pappy McAllister. Not turn him in, but the Pappy McAllister is a cat that they found at Watanga Mining Complex. That they believe, that they have a suspicion that Pappy McAllister was actually a human being who got cursed into being a cat, and they are trying to find a way to break the curse, and so they have caged Pappy McAllister, and he is being cared for by Liliana and Kethra at Sable Guard. In addition, Babbo kept the 2 oxen that were being used by the Chaos Cultists to drag their cargo to Arragas, and those 2 oxen are now in a little pen that Babbo built for them behind the Sable Guard Guildhouse. So Kethra heads to the Abbey of the Merciful Wind. That's her local church of Ara. That's where she meets with her mentor and really sort of her boss. And his name is Abbot Eugene. And she heads there with Liliana and Pappy McAllister because they are going to see if they can't find someone who knows about curses and find someone to break the curse. Abbot Eugene is really busy, but they managed to get a few minutes with him, and he basically says that he doesn't believe in curses like that those are fairy tale curses and they're not real. People don't get turned into cats or frogs or newts or anything like that, by witches in the swamp and all this other stuff. And he basically says that he doesn't have time to check the cat for curses, to check Kethra and Liliana's cat for curses. At that point, Liliana slips up a little bit with the social faux pas by basically instructing, asking Abbot Eugene in a very blunt way if he was sure that he couldn't check it again and maybe use some magic or a ritual this time. At that point, Abbot Eugene gets a little miffed about it and basically tells them he doesn't have time for this. And so he leaves, and Liliana and Kethra also leave. Or they are leaving, and Kethra gets pulled over. Kethra gets cornered in the hallway by Brother Caleb and Brother Brad, who are two priests of Ara that have received a report from Arister or Orleans, accusing Kethra of disrespect and impiety, and falling away from the path of the righteous, and just general sort of backtalk and sass. And so Kethra suffers a chastisement. The two brothers yell at her, tell her that she's supposed to be an example, and that she's supposed to show respect, and especially with the paladin of Givney, we're all on the same side, and so you need to be showing respect to your elders and your betters. And so as penance, they basically send her on a mission to wash the unclean, which means that she has to go down to one of the local poor houses, and she has to help really old people and invalids and people like that with bathing themselves as a form of making her humble again, and making her see the value of serving others, and also fulfilling one of the duties of the priesthood that is a little less desirable for everyone. Nobody wants to go wash the unclean, least of all Kethra, but Kethra is devout, and so she owns up to what she did, and she goes and faces her punishment. Liliana wanders the abbey for a little while until she's able to corner Abbot Eugene again, and catch him alone this time. And she takes the opportunity to tell Abbot Eugene all of the good things that Kethra has been doing, and that she is a very good person and a very good representative of Ara and Ara's mercy in the world, despite what Arister Orleans had originally reported. So Abbot Eugene is happy to hear that, and it sort of softens his anger with Kethra over the reports of her impiety, and also with regards to basically demanding that he uncurse their cat. After Liliana and Abbot Eugene part ways, Liliana goes outside and sends an animal messenger to her mentor, Ornithalos, in the hopes that Ornithalos will know something about breaking curses on people who may or may not have been turned into cats. Meanwhile, Vesper, Macaria, and Arister have headed over to Sablegard, and when they first arrive, they catch Vance and Kurga talking clandestinely over what appears to be a map, a topographical map. When they come in, Vance and Kurga immediately stop talking, and Vance moves around and sort of intercepts the three heroes near the door to give Kurga time to roll the map up and fold it away and put it into his pockets. Then Kurga leaves with the map, and when the heroes confront Vance about what's going on, what's with the map, is it a side deal? Is it a side job? Is it something we want to be a part of it? Vance lies to them and denies that there was a map at all. Like he says, what you saw wasn't a map, and don't worry about it, and it's no big deal. So Vesper attempts to convince Vance to let the heroes in on whatever the scheme is, by sort of offering to pay back his debt to the guild in a more expedient way, which sort of backfires because Vance, Vesper has a lot of debt that he owes to Sable Guard, and the mere suggestion that he could have already paid it all off or could be paying it back in a much quicker way doesn't really work well as a negotiation tactic with Vance. Vance informs them that the hero's guildmate, a rogue named Elizrin Fisk, is hunting down clues about who set the Sable Guard guild house fire. When the adventurers returned to the guild house, they found that the north side of the building had caught on fire, and fortunately, the blaze had been put out, had been doused before it did enough structural damage to the building to cause any collapse. However, it looks terrible, and the front of the building is all burned out, and it's a husk. And so, on an investigation, Vance and Kurga have both surmised that the fire was intentionally started by someone, and so they sent Elizrin Fisk out into the streets to sort of poke around and ask questions and see if she can't discover who was in charge. Just a little bit later, a man named Adel Castellani comes to Sable Guard with his lieutenant Dagon. Adel Castellani is a very powerful merchant who owns many of the warehouses on the docks of Arragas, and he is known for being a shrewd merchant and a powerful merchant, and he's also known for having quote unquote many beautiful daughters. But people don't say that to his face because he doesn't like having his daughters talked about like that. And he informs the group that the girl that they helped to escape from the men at the Dragon's Teardrop is actually his daughter Violetta, and that she is a skilled liar and that she's good at manipulating people and getting them to do what she wants. And it turns out that Dagon, the red-haired swordsman, is the same red-haired swordsman that Arister introduced himself to in the alleyway, and those men that attacked Arister and Macaria and a few others actually worked for Adel Castellani. Now, Adel Castellani did not authorize any sort of violence, so one of the men doesn't work for him anymore, and the rest of them had all been disciplined. Adel is respectful, but he is clearly very angry that his daughter is missing and that the members of Sable Guard had anything to do with helping her to run away. He then informs them that he expects Violetta's safe return, and that if that does not occur very, very quickly, he is going to take it personally, and he issues a veiled threat to the business, to Sable Guard as a guild, that he will use his power and influence to destroy them. So they start asking some questions the heroes do, in order to start to help them recover Violetta. And Adel Castellani tells them of Auguste Renaud and his son Olivier. Auguste is also a powerful merchant and a rival of Adel Castellani's. And Adel is convinced that Auguste and his son Olivier have come up with a scheme to trick Violetta into falling in love with Olivier and marrying him. And the reason that this is happening, Adel's theory, is that if Violetta marries Olivier, he could, due to an old legal rule with a loophole, once the two kids are married, then Auguste Renaud can use the legal loophole to seize a significant portion of Adel's wealth, family wealth, in the form of a dowry. And Adel is absolutely positive that this is the plan. Trick my daughter into marrying your son, and then she'll be trapped in a loveless marriage, a sham of a marriage, and you will just use the wedding as a way to legally steal a large portion of my family's wealth that we have worked very hard and long to accumulate. But Adel also makes it clear, very clear, that his main motivation is that he doesn't want one of his daughters to be trapped in a loveless marriage to his enemy, and become, a member of his enemy's family. Initially, the heroes are a little. What do I want to say? They speculate that Adel may be lying, or that Adel may be manipulating them, and they're just a little bit concerned. So they ask him several questions about his relationship to his daughter and how he intends to keep them. Like, should they recover Violetta, how does he intend to keep her from marrying Olivier if she's in love with him? And he responds very simply, I'll just physically keep her away from the Renaud family, so that they can't marry her, so that they can't, perform the ceremony. And so the heroes decide that for various pragmatic reasons and maybe one or two moral reasons, that they have an obligation to find Violetta and at least verify the validity of Adel's story, and possibly help her escape an evil scheme. But also because they don't want a powerful enemy in Arragas, at the very least, they're going to go get Violetta and bring her home to her father, and they can hash it out among their family. So they decide to stake out the Renaud family compound in the township of Lower Puddington. And if you'll recall, Arragas is actually a sprawling city, but it's divided into a bunch of little townships and sort of villages and hamlets and things like that, and little districts. And all of these districts and little towns and stuff make up the whole city of Arragas. So Arragas is really sort of a metropolitan suburb area. And the Senate of Arragas, the Senate that makes the laws, is made up of all the mayors and governors and the representatives of each of these little districts and towns and villages, which explains, at least in some ways, why the security levels in Arragas vary depending on where you are. Obviously, the richer areas of town can afford more Millipole presence, and they can also afford to hire their own private guilds for security reasons. And so, because they have money, they get more people patrolling the streets to make sure that everyone follows the laws and stays safe. Whereas some of the poorer areas of Arragas don't have those financial resources, and so they aren't able to hire as many guilds and police force to cover, all the whole city. During their stakeout, they discovered only a little. They're pretty much discriminated against because of their manner of dress and because they're obviously not very rich, and they're in a rich area of town. So they sort of give up on, they know where the Renaud family compound is, and so they sort of give up on staking it out, and they decide that they're going to go try to find Olivier himself. And they discover, through investigation and through, hunting around town, that Olivier Renaud is a rather infamous drunk and womanizer. So he's constantly on a bender, and he, sleeps with lots of women and hires lots of prostitutes. And while he ostensibly calls some of them Violetta if he's drunk enough, he doesn't treat the women very well at all, which lends a lot of credence to Adel Castellani's theory that Olivier does not actually love Violetta, that maybe he is obsessed with her in some way, or is in other ways infatuated with her, but it isn't love. So at this point, the heroes decide that they are going to try to find Olivier and figure out where Violetta is and rescue her from a monster of a husband. And season 1, episode 8 ends with Arister Orleans taking his vow of devotion at an official ceremony and becoming a paladin of Givney officially. He takes his vow in front of all the other paladins and becomes a paladin of Givney for realsies. So that's pretty much it. That's episode 8 in a nutshell. The rest you should be able to glean from the surrounding episodes and the rest of season 1. I apologize for the technical difficulties that resulted in episode 8 being nearly unwatchable, but I hope at the very least I have given you some anchor points along the story so that those of you who are binge watching these episodes can keep up without too many questions. Thanks for tuning in, and I will be back very shortly. Good night.